sat on the couch, looking at my laptop and trying to force my thoughts to focus. On the screen glowed a website I had found by chance, while delving into old archives from 2011. It was deeply buried, no one mentioned it anymore. And it was there that I stumbled upon a story about a farmstead that once stood somewhere in the heart of the forests of the USA. There was some text at the bottom too, but in my excitement, I skimmed it with my eyes and didn't pay attention. They spoke of missing people, probably torn apart by wolves, and about something else, something unspeakably terrible. I turned my head and looked at my friend. He was sitting on a kitchen stool, drinking beer and rocking back and forth, not noticing that I had almost already drawn him into my idea. "Dude," I began, trying to sound more convincing than I actually felt. "Let's try to do something really cool for the channel. Something real." He raised an eyebrow. "What exactly?" he asked with mild skepticism. "A forest, an old farmstead, a place where once, well, they say there were wolf attacks. People disappeared. Strange things. I found it on an old 2011 website. No one knows what's really there. We could spend the night there, film everything. The vlog, the atmosphere, the real feelings." He laughed and shook his head. "Are you serious? Your real expeditions again? Last time we barely got out of that abandoned factory, and your camera barely survived. Listen, this is a whole different level," I assured him. "No one goes there. The forest is huge, we might find traces of tourists, old buildings. It'll be a real adrenaline rush. And nothing bad will happen to us, I promise." He was silent for a long time, swallowing his beer and staring into space. I could see his internal, maybe wavering. "All right," he finally said. "But if we die there, I'll find you and your video to show everyone who buries us." "Deal," I exclaimed, feeling an internal euphoria. The next morning we woke up before dawn. The sun had just begun to rise over the horizon, casting cold rays on our car. My old pickup truck, which we had once almost written off, today became our ship into the unknown. We loaded all the necessary gear: backpacks with food, sleeping bags, cameras, flashlights, and of course spare batteries for all the equipment. The road to the forest was long. Kilometers of asphalt gave way to a dirt road, and we really started to feel cut off from civilization. The pickup truck bounced over the bumps, stones rattled under the wheels, and the smell of the forest grew thicker. "You feel that?" my friend asked when we stopped to catch our breath. "It's so quiet. Almost no birds." "That's normal for a forest," I replied, although I felt a slight chill down my own spine. The deeper you go, the quieter it gets, and this forest is huge. We could get lost in 2 minutes if we're not careful. We parked the pickup in a thick bush, almost at the edge of a path. I checked the GPS, although the map was approximate. The forest here seemed endless, like an ocean of trees. The shadows from the pines and oaks stretched long across the dirt road, and it seemed as if the trees themselves were watching us. "Okay, plan for today. Go a bit deeper into the forest, find a place to set up camp for the night. Then we'll explore the area and maybe find traces of previous visitors. The cameras should work fine." We set off. Every step on the soft, damp earth was accompanied by the rustle of leaves and the creak of branches. It seemed as if the forest was swallowing every sound, as if it were alive and listening to us. "Are you sure you want to film this for YouTube?" my friend asked when we came across an old, almost overgrown path. "Maybe we should just walk through and forget about this place?" "No," I replied, feeling my heart start to beat faster. This is a chance to do something real. Real content. Real fear. We walked for a long time. The sun rose higher, but the trees densely blocked the sky, creating a feeling of midnight dusk. The path became more and more rocky, roots stuck out of the ground, and several times we almost tripped. Finally, we came across a small clearing among the trees. Here we could set up the tents and take a short break. My friend breathed a sigh of relief, and I already had the camera out and started filming. "This is where we'll spend the night," I said, turning to him. "The place is relatively safe. The forest is huge, but we can orient ourselves here." He just nodded, but I could see his tension. He also felt something unusual about this forest. The silence, the smell of pine, the distant sounds. It all created a feeling that we had become small figures in a huge world that lived its own life. We set up the tents, laid out the sleeping bags, and I checked the cameras again. The GPS showed our approximate route, but we knew that the smallest mistake could lead us into a dead end. For the first few hours, we just watched the light change in the forest. Every shadow looked suspicious. Every sound seemed treacherous. My friend held a flashlight, and I noticed his hands trembling slightly. "Are you sure the night will go smoothly?" he asked. "I hope so," I replied, although an inner feeling of unease suggested we hadn't seen anything yet. "But if something happens, we'll film it." We didn't yet know that the forest we had entered had its own memory. It remembered everything that had happened here hundreds of years ago, and today we had become its guests, not even suspecting that we were being watched. We had already settled into the tents, laid out the sleeping bags, and checked the equipment, when a scream echoed from afar. It wasn't a human scream, a drawn-out, hoarse sound that chilled you to the bone. My friend jerked his head up. That's some animal, probably wolves or coyotes," he said, trying to calm himself with his voice. I nodded silently, feeling my heart beat faster. We had set up cameras around the tent. Even if nothing happened, it would be good material for the video. We could add some editing, special effects, and the video would definitely get views. The night was quiet. Only the distant rustling of trees reminded us of the forest's presence. We slept poorly, but the night passed without incident. At dawn, we woke up and quickly packed the camp. The sun broke through the branches, leaving long shadows on the soft ground. We moved on, deeper into the forest. The paths became more and more tangled. Every turn seemed similar to the last. I felt my pulse quicken from the sense of the unknown. "Don't you think we're lost?" my friend suddenly asked, and his voice sounded nervous. I wanted to open the map to check our location, but it turned out there was no internet or connection at all. My gaze ran over the trees, and a feeling of anxiety slowly crept into my chest. "Maybe we should go home?" my friend suggested, already a little confused, but I felt hypnotized. Inside me burned a desire for new content, for real footage that no one had ever seen. I just nodded and moved forward, and my friend followed. We walked, took short breaks, drank water, tried to conserve our food supplies. It was already evening, and I finally realized we should have turned back home long ago. But now we had no idea where we were. My friend started to get even more nervous, constantly whining, "I can't take it anymore. We're lost. Maybe we should just..." But I paid no attention. My brain was completely captivated by the idea of filming. I suggested making another stop, and we decided to spend another night in the forest, and after that, definitely go home. The only problem was that I myself had no idea where we were. When it got dark, we looked for a place to stop and stumbled upon something strange. Gradually, through the dense trees, we noticed old, peeling buildings. Nearby stood an old well, next to a farm where you could make out the remains of agricultural tools, bent rusty wheel rims, and broken windows. Everything was abandoned, yet majestic and eerie, like time frozen in fog. My friend forgot all his fears. His eyes lit up, and he immediately pulled out his camera and started filming. I watched his face glow with excitement, and I also felt a surge of adrenaline. We walked among the buildings, filming shots of old wooden walls, cracks in the roofs, empty rooms that hinted at past human life. "This is definitely a hit for the channel," my friend said, not stopping filming. "People love places like this." We filmed for hours. Every sound in the darkness, every rustle of trees seemed part of our story. The winds wandering between the farm and the old houses added to the feeling of the presence of someone or something else. My friend was delighted, and so was I. We felt this place would become a legend on our channel. When we finally set up our tents near the old well, I looked at the forest, at the buildings glowing in the flashlight beams, and felt an incredible cocktail of fear and excitement. We took another break, ate the remaining food, and watching the forest in the darkness, realized that this night promised to be special. My friend kept talking about the footage, editing plans, and possible effects, but I noticed something else. The forest around us seemed to grow quiet, and at the same time it was watching. Something was there, beyond the light of our flashlights, and I felt it with every nerve in my body. As I said, we had set up camp near the old, overgrown well, surrounded by bushes so densely intertwined with trees that the flashlight beam barely pierced the darkness. I tried to look calm, like everything was under control, we'd find our way back tomorrow. But inside, everything was clenched. It felt as if the forest itself was pressing down on us, weighing on our shoulders, making it hard to breathe. My friend was fumbling in his backpack, nervously sorting through things. Suddenly, he looked up. "Hey, let's see what the cameras recorded last night." I nodded silently. He pulled out one camera, the one pointed at our tent. We settled on an old, rotten stump, and he turned on the recording. He fast-forwarded quickly, barely looking. The recording went on for hours. Darkness, a slight tremble of the lens from the night wind. I was watching with an indifferent gaze, not expecting anything interesting, until suddenly a bright white flash shot across the screen. "Stop!" I sharply grabbed his hand. "Go back, and play it slowly." He obediently rewound and turned on slow motion. We stared. The frames jerked slowly, one after another, and for a second, just a second, among the black shadows, a T appeared. I felt my stomach grow cold, my throat dry. The creature was walking past the tent at 3:06 a.m. It was almost impossible to describe. A human-like form, but the skin was black, charred, cracked with white festering sores. It seemed to be rotting from the inside, and under the cracked, burned surface something moved, pulsed. This gender was indeterminable. It wasn't even clear if it was alive. It walked slowly, like a person who had forgotten where they were going, and it just walked past our tent. My friend froze. I was looking at him with the same glassy eyes. Is that, what is that?" He whispered in a hoarse voice. "Hell if I know," I barely whispered. "The main thing is to survive until dawn." After that, we couldn't sleep. We sat in the tent holding our breath, and that's when it started. From outside, the tent walls came rustling, as if someone was sneaking around, deliberately circling our spot. Sometimes branches broke so close that I heard pieces of bark falling to the ground. Then came strange sounds, a kind of dull growl, like a distant roar, but muffled. Then scratching, as if someone was clawing at a tree with long, bony fingers. My friend trembled and whispered, Do you hear that?" "I hear it." I was barely breathing. We sat like that until 6 in the morning, as if rooted to the ground. When the clock showed 6 o'clock, I dared to open the tent zipper a little, and froze. It was dark outside, dark as if it was still the dead of night. Even though it was the height of summer, the sun should have been bright by now. I called my friend. He looked out, and just sat back down, clutching his head. "What the hell is happening?" he barely uttered. "If only I knew," I replied, but my voice trembled. We waited. 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and outside, solid, impenetrable darkness. The cameras set up around us were not working. Phones dead. Watches had stopped. Just froze. "We need to do something," my friend whispered, and we decided to leave the tent. It was like being in a bottomless bag. Trees, houses, everything was barely visible in the unchanging darkness. And then my attention was drawn to the old church. A wooden dome, almost collapsing, but on it, an inverted cross was clearly visible. And on that cross, something was hanging. Something that shouldn't exist in the real world. A creature similar to the one from the night camera, but larger, worse. Like the very embodiment of evil, madness, and death. Its body was twisted, as if someone had broken all its bones and put them back together wrong. It had no eyes, but suddenly it jerked sharply and looked right at us. I felt something break in my chest. My friend whispered quietly, "What is that?" And we ran. We didn't even look back. We abandoned everything. Our things, food, equipment, even our backpacks. We just ran. And behind us, something roared so loudly that the forest shuddered. The roar was rotten, uneven, as if dozens of voices were screaming at once. Only one thought pounded in my head. Get out, get out, get out. All right. We ran for so long that I could no longer feel my legs or lungs. The world before my eyes turned into a blurry smear of darkness and branches lashing my face and arms. I could only hear two sounds, our ragged breath and what was chasing us. My friend ran ahead, I was behind, and something inside me made me turn around, as if someone grabbed my hair and yanked my head back. And I saw it. That creature that was hanging on the inverted cross was running after us on all fours, or even on some twisted, unnatural limbs. It moved too fast, too low to the ground, as if sliding. Its face, black, charred, cracked like wood that had burned all night, and instead of eyes, two voids, from which fog trailed. The hatred there was so intense it just contorted me. "Run!" I shouted to my friend, although both of us were already running at our limit. Our strength was running out. My chest burned, as if someone had inserted a red-hot rod. My legs wouldn't obey, and it was getting closer. We already felt it was about to catch us. My friend was gasping for air. I could barely keep going, and then I felt a heavy shadow leap into the air behind me, just about to slam into my neck, but at the last second, the ground disappeared from under my feet. "Stop!" my friend managed to shout, but it was too late. We fell down, 5, 6, 7 meters of falling. The roar of air in my ears, emptiness under my feet, and then impact. We fell into a thick black swamp. It was cold, slimy, stinking, but it saved us. I choked, tasted rot on my lips. Clutching at roots, we scrambled to the shore. My friend, trembling, pointed to where we had fallen from. Right on the edge of the cliff stood that creature. It stood and looked down at us, writhing with anger. It seemed not to understand how we had avoided the blow. Then it sharply, very sharply, as if yanked by a chain, turned around and darted into the bushes, disappeared. We stood in silence, with black swamp on our hands and faces, barely breathing. "What was that?" my friend rasped. "I don't know." I shrugged, though inside everything was clenched. But it shouldn't exist in this world. We moved on. And all this time, not a hint of light. None. As if we were in a bag, in the very center of a night that wasn't going to end. The trees loomed like black giants. The ground was cold, the air rotten. We had no food or water. Supplies in the tent. Cameras, the most valuable thing that could prove to the world we weren't lying, there too. We walked for maybe 4 hours or 9 or 1. I didn't know. Phones didn't work. Watches either. We just walked until we reached dense thickets. And there I heard it. A rustle. Then a second. A third. Then a dozen. As if something was crawling around us. Many somethings. I raised my hand to stop my friend, and we froze. And then it emerged from the darkness. The same creature that had chased us from the farmstead. Only now it was closer, much closer. His skin was covered in corpse-like stains. Bones protruded. Eyes weren't eyes, but wet, shiny holes. And in those holes was hatred and despair. Yes, as if it hated us for being alive. We stepped back. "Pete, please," my friend whispered, though it sounded absurd. The creature just tilted its head to the side, like a dog considering where to bite. Took a step, a second, a third, and when it was already arching, about to leap at my chest, a hum, a roar, so loud the ground shook. Somewhere deep in the forest, something roared so powerfully that my ears actually ached. The creature in front of us stopped abruptly. His face changed. Fear. Real. Deep. The kind even we didn't have right then. It bent double, turned around, and disappeared into the darkness so fast I didn't even have time to blink. Then footsteps. Heavy. Muffled. Each impact on the ground resonated in my chest. We threw ourselves into the nearest ditch and hid, lying close together. I felt my friend trembling, but couldn't calm him. I was in a panic myself, and then it came out. A creature much larger than the previous one. Tall, gaunt, bony, with unnatural limbs, and a fifth one sticking out like an extra leg. The skin seemed flayed. Bones were visible. Damn, there were no eyes. It roared again, and the sound was so strong I really thought my eardrums would burst. We lay quieter than the dead, and it passed by, just didn't notice us. When it disappeared, I felt like I was breathing for the first time. And then it hit me, that website, that article, that small line at the bottom, which I skimmed without finishing. All who spent 2 consecutive nights in this forest did not return. And then I understood everything. What was happening to us wasn't an accident. We had spent the second night. We had crossed the boundary. We had no chance. One thought pounded in my head. Why didn't I finish reading? Why was I so stupid? Why did I want that damn content so much? I clenched my fists in the mud until my friend snapped me out of my thoughts. Why did we come here? Why? Damn it. We're doomed. We'll never get out. This was a stupid idea. It's you. You dragged us here. You're getting on my nerves. I shouted, though I was barely holding on myself. You think this is easy for me? You think I don't understand that I didn't get to finish because something rustled around us. First one sound, then a second, then dozens at once. And when we turned around, we saw them, many creatures, the same ones, black, cadaverous, with unnatural limbs, with empty gazes and hatred that shone through the darkness. They slowly emerged from the thicket, one by one, surrounding us from all sides. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, just darkness, just the forest, just us and them. I felt the cold penetrating my bones. A thought flashed through my head. This is it. All right. They surrounded us so quietly and quickly that I didn't even understand how we ended up inside a tight ring of the beings. It seemed their dark, thin bodies had simply grown from the earth, like trees that had long died but suddenly remembered how to move. All had the same distorted faces, cut by deep cracks, as if the skin was about to fall off in pieces. Eyes voids without whites, but one creature stood out, the one standing right in front of me. On its head, horns, twisted and sharp, as if molded from something living and not yet set. It rose slightly taller than the others, and I felt its gaze on my skin, though it itself seemed to have no eyes. And when it spoke, I froze.
Who are you?
It buzzed from what seemed like dozens of throats at once, thick, hoarse, rotting. Felt like a blow to the chest. I couldn't even exhale right away. My friend and I exchanged glances, both white as chalk. "We," my friend rasped first. "We are lost." I didn't recognize his voice. It trembled, broke, sounded as if he was talking to himself, not to the abomination before us. The horned creature slowly tilted its head, the cracks on its neck stretching as if they were about to split to the bone.
You have been in the forest alone, and you, when our settlement here, saw what should not be seen.
A shiver ran through me. I immediately remembered the farm, those buildings, that inverted cross, and the creature hanging on it. My friend, closer to the creatures, raised his hands. It was an accident," he shouted. "We didn't know where we were going. Please, we mean no harm," I confirmed, swallowing the saliva stuck in my throat. "Let us go, please," I said. The horned creature seemed to smile, but it wasn't a face, just a shadow of a smile that spread across its skull.
You have seen tomb. No, you are cursed to remain here until the end of your days.
Everything inside me dropped. My friend, it seemed, just couldn't believe what he was hearing. "What? No, no," he shouted sharply, abruptly, as if his throat was about to tear. Isn't there any way out? Please, there must be a way." The horned creature was silent for a few seconds. The silence during its pause was worse than any roar. Then it slowly, with a crunch, turned its head towards us.
Where their eyes
turned bitter.
But the price is great.
My friend didn't think for a second. "What is it?" He took half a step forward. "What's the price?" I wanted to grab his shoulder, but didn't have time. The creature's voice buzzed like thunder underground.
Human heart.
I recoiled.
Bring whose as sacrifice. We will tear the heart out of the chest, and then perhaps.
The creature didn't stop looking at us. It was a blow to the gut. I couldn't feel my arms or legs. My friend, too. We just sat there, stunned. The creatures turned and began to slowly dissolve into the darkness between the trees. And we were silent for another minute. Finally, my friend whispered, What do we do now?" His voice broke into a thin, childish whimper. I was silent for a long time, looking at the ground, where dark drops were falling. Whether it had started to rain or sweat was dripping from my forehead. "I don't know," I finally replied, "but we haven't eaten for probably 2 days. If we want to even think, we need to find something edible." My friend just nodded. We moved into the darkness, among trees that looked like burned hands. The forest seemed even darker than before. We walked in silence, hearing only our own steps and some distant, very deep humming, as if the forest itself was breathing. After a while, we came across some berry bushes. The berries were dark, bitter, but we swallowed them without thinking. The hunger was so intense that waves of nausea were already rising. After that, my friend sat on a log and pulled out his knife. "What are you doing?" I asked. "We need a weapon." He began sharpening a long stick with even mechanical motions. "In case something else comes out. We can't just walk around empty-handed." "But they didn't attack us," I said quietly. "The ones that surrounded us, they were peaceful." "Peaceful?" He turned to me sharply. "Are you serious? They talked about a sacrifice. They want a heart, a human one. I'm not going to sit around and wait for them to drag us to the altar." I fell silent, because he was right no matter how much I tried to calm myself. After a few minutes of silence, my friend exhaled and said, "We need to find their settlement and negotiate. Give them something else. Something. There's a chance they might agree." Wasn't thinking. I just nodded. It was as if my brain had refused to work logically. I just clung to any plan. Otherwise, we'd simply go insane. "Okay," I said. "Let's go. We'll try." So we set off again into the darkness, into the forest that had no end, towards the settlement of the creatures which could be anywhere, without food, without water, without time, in a world where the sun had ceased to exist. The last thing that flashed through my mind as we walked was how, after the first night in the forest, I had looked at that website. I had looked, but hadn't finished reading. It was written clearly, "Those who spend 2 nights in this forest do not return ever." And we had already survived the second night. Perhaps escape was simply impossible, and it was on that thought that my mind snapped shut. We emerged into a place where the trees seemed to stand too straight, too densely packed, and for a moment I was certain we were being watched, that they already knew where we were going, and what we were carrying. And at that thought, my hands turned cold. The darkness hung over the forest like a living mass. It seemed to breathe, to stir, to press down on our shoulders. And as my friend and I walked through these thickets, I felt that every step we took was the last sound we'd leave in this world. I could hear my heart thumping, echoing in my ribs as if trying to beat its way out. My legs ached with pain. Every step felt like torture. The ground was soft, like rotten flesh, something crumbling and cracking beneath it, as if we were stepping on the ribs of unknown animals. I didn't know how long we'd been walking. A minute, an hour, a day? Time didn't exist in this forest. It felt like we were walking in circles, but the circle kept shifting deeper, sucking us further and further in. Our faces were battered, scratched by branches, our clothes torn, our hands trembling. We barely spoke. Every sound seemed too loud, too alive, too likely to attract the attention of something better left undisturbed. But the words escaped me first. "I don't..." My voice was hoarse, as if my throat had been scratched from the inside. "I don't know how long we've been walking." "Just walk," my friend grunted, not looking up. He was shaking too. "Just walk." The air was cold but sticky. The leaves high up in the canopies stood dead, not a single rustle, as if the forest was waiting for us to make a mistake. And it didn't keep us waiting long. We had just climbed another small rise when I heard the sound, like someone pressing a giant palm against the earth. Thud, and again, thud. The ground trembled almost imperceptibly. I froze. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, though I already knew the answer. My friend nodded slowly, his eyes widening like an animal's before slaughter. Thud, thud, thud. The footsteps were heavy, slow, but confident, like a predator that knows its prey won't get far. "Hide!" my friend hissed. We fell into some kind of ditch, barely looking where. The ground was wet, cold, smelling of rot. I pressed my whole body into it, covering my head with my hands, trying not to breathe too loudly. The footsteps grew closer, and then I saw it. It was walking between the trees, tall, unnaturally elongated. It bent like a spider, its body thin, bony, but radiating such power that I almost choked on my panic. A fifth limb dangled behind it, slowly scraping the ground and leaving marks on the rotten roots. His face, God, I wish I'd never seen it. Eyes, 3 of them, all different sizes, moving not together, but separately, as if living their own lives. Its jaw opened too wide, the cracking of its joints audible. Something thick and dark dripped from its mouth. It stopped right by the ditch. I felt its shadow cover me, cold and heavy. It stood there, sniffing the air. I didn't breathe. I prayed, though I didn't know to whom. One more step and it would have looked right at me. But it glanced around, snapped its teeth, and slowly moved on, deeper into the thicket. I still don't know why it didn't notice us. We lay there for another 10 minutes, afraid to move. Then my friend nudged me gently. "Let's go, before it comes back." We got up, barely able to stand, and we walked on, exhausted, hungry, pushed to the limit. We finally saw light spots ahead between the trees. At first, I thought it was just some brighter moss or bare soil, but the closer we got, the clearer the outlines became of buildings. Twisted, leaning structures built not by humans, that was clear at a glance. The walls were crooked, beams bent as if by hand. Roofs uneven, some almost touching the ground. This was a place where nothing should live, but something did. And in the middle of it all stood it, the creature with horns. It looked at us silently, then its voice, as if from several throats at once, rasped.
You made a sacrifice.
My throat tightened. And no, I stammered. We can offer something else. The horned creature shifted its posture, the horns tilting forward slightly as if it was listening. But a cold spark of anger ignited in its eyes.
Get away from here before we tear you apart. There is no other way. You've fallen into another reality. There's only one way out.
We were silent, because what can you say to that? Silence hung between us, and suddenly, my friend stepped back, another step back. Then, with a jerk, he grabbed the sharpened stick, the one he'd made to defend himself. He pressed it to my throat. I felt the point pierce my skin. "What are you doing?" I shouted. "Take him!" he shrieked, trembling so hard the stick shook. "Take him. Let me get out. He's the one you need. Him, not me." I froze. Everything inside me snapped. The betrayal hit me so hard I could barely breathe. The horned creature slowly turned its head towards my friend.
We hate traitors.
Took a step forward. My friend trembled, started backing away, but it was too late. The creature stretched out an arm, long, thin, with bony fingers, and grabbed him by the neck so sharply I heard a crack. My friend gasped, his eyes bulging large, round, terrified. The creature leaned close to him.
Anyone who betrays will be torn apart.
2 other creatures jumped out from behind the buildings, twisted his arms, cracked his joints. He screamed, sharply, high-pitched, piercing. "Don't!" I yelled, but my voice was lost in the darkness. They pinned him to the ground. It put a knee on his chest so he couldn't move. My friend thrashed, tore at the air with his hands and feet, tried to break free, but in vain. The creatures were 100 times stronger. The horned creature raised its hand. Its fingers spread apart, turning into something between blades and bony hooks. Slowly, very slowly, it began to sink them into his chest. I heard the skin tear. I heard the ribs crack. I felt the warm blood spray from under its fingers. My friend screamed so loudly I thought I'd go deaf. He arched, his legs beating the ground. He snarled, choked on his own screams, and the fingers went deeper and deeper. It was digging for the heart, like searching for something in a bag of meat. Blood splattered, steaming in the cold air. He wasn't screaming anymore, he was screeching. It was the sound of a person realizing they were dying the most painful death. The creature muttered something, as if whispering an incantation. Then it sharply clenched something inside him. Crunch! My friend's eyes rolled back, no longer seeing. Foam and blood came from his mouth. And then the creature slowly pulled its hands from his chest, holding his living, warm, still beating heart. It handed it to another creature. My friend fell to his knees, swayed, looked at me. His eyes, they were filled with animal terror and pain, and pleading, and shame. He fell to the ground, and moved no more. I couldn't scream or cry. Everything inside me had turned to stone. The horned creature slowly turned to me.
Go down that path. When you see a turn to the left, turn and follow it until you see a tree larger than the others, with an inverted cross painted on it. Go to sleep under this tree, and let us never see you here again.
I said nothing. I just turned and walked away. I walked for a long time, a very long time. It felt like my legs were made of cotton, my head empty, my body moving on its own. When I saw that tree large, crooked, leaning to the left, I just collapsed next to it and didn't even have time to think. Sleep came over me like a stone, and I dreamed of my friend, alive, laughing. We were making videos, traveling, getting millions of views, not thinking about anything bad. I didn't want to wake up, but I did, and I saw light, the sun, real, warm. I screamed with joy, with relief, with the fact that I was alive. I ran, fell, got up, ran again. I didn't know where, just away. After some time, I saw a road, and our car. It was covered in leaves, moss, dust, as if it had been standing for a month, or longer. I touched the hood cold, got in the driver's seat, my hands shaking, turned the key. The car started. I roared with relief, and I drove away. When I walked into the house, my mother froze. Her eyes went wide. She turned pale before my eyes. On the table was my photograph, with a black ribbon. "Son," she whispered and rushed to hug me. You died." I couldn't say anything. They never found my friend. He was declared missing. I was called in for questioning. They asked what happened, but I remained silent, because who would I tell? Who would believe me? But what hurt the most was the betrayal by the one I considered a brother. And yet, I felt sorry for him. I see his face at night, his scream, his eyes, and I thought that was the end, until the note arrived. No sender, no stamp, just a single sheet. "Your friend had a bad heart. We need another one. You didn't pay the price. Make another sacrifice, or we will come for you and repeat what we did to your friend." I stood, holding that sheet, and felt the ground beneath my feet falling away again into the darkness I had barely escaped. And I knew they wouldn't just leave me alone, because they are still out there, in the darkness of the forest, and they know where I live.